This
And
conference
yeah,
will now be recorded.
so we are going to discuss about Appian today. But before I'm going to discuss about Appian, we need to know how and what is Appian. First of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Murali Krishna. So I'm having overall around 18 years of experience, and in 18 years, I'm from past 11 years, I'm working in Appian. So yeah, I have seen so many versions of Appian from 2011 onwards. Yeah. So in Appian, I have seen almost every kind of application, all varieties of scenarios with so many different clients. Okay, so we will discuss about Appian in these sessions from now going onward. But even before I start about Appian, what is Appian and how it comes and where it stands in the market. How what is the what I can say, what is the career, how it is going to be. So all everything we'll discuss. And also, if you guys have any questions, please stop me and let me know. We can discuss and go further. Okay. First of all, am I audible? Is my voice clear or any
Yes.
any? Yeah. Great. Okay. So usually in IT in software, we the basic developer is a software engineer, senior software engineer, right? And then team lead, and then so we do have certain stages in software industry, right? So software means what we will do is we'll create some programs, or we'll create some applications to make life easy for so many end users. We have an app to order the food online, right? And we have an app to book the tickets, flight tickets, right? And we have an app, for recharging, or for paying the bills, right? So if you see nowadays, mostly everything is applications. So for everything, if you have a mobile in your phone, sorry, if you have a mobile in your hand, that means almost you can do anything, whatever you want, from daily functionalities of point of view. So most of the applications were implementing by some of the technology, so I don't say it is low, it is no code. We have some code, but you no need to create your own logic anywhere. So everything Appian is going to provide its own logic, but we have to use it. And like what I can say is, if you know the Lego blocks, right? So you have all independent blocks. What you have to do is, if I want to build a house, I have to take certain type of blocks and I have to build a house. But if I want to build, a car, then so the same blocks you have to arrange in a different way. So blocks will not change, but the arrangement will change, so that shape will get a new shape. So similarly, the APN provide a standard set of tool, and that tool, by using the tool and with the help of all the objects that it was provided, with that combination we can implement an application quite easily without much effort. But before we are going to the Appian tool, what it is. So here I don't say, if you don't know anything about programming also, you can learn Appian, or you will understand Appian. Because for example, see, if it is the case, then the market will be filled with complete Appian guys only. If I don't know anything, so I can learn Appian simply in 1 or 2 months, and then I can go and get a job. If it is the case, think, there will be so many guys, so many resources in the market. But even I hope you guys know, now inflation is going on in the market, but still there is a there is a crunch of app developers or app designers. Everyone, if you say that you are app and developer with at least 1 year experience, immediately you will get a job if you are you know technically sound enough for them. Okay, so it doesn't matter what is your experience, but if you are capable of cracking an APN interview, then you'll get job immediately at any time of the year. That is how the market for the APN is. Okay, so why we have that much crunch is, usually, if you want to learn APN, you should know at least a basic programming knowledge. Basic means I'm not asking you to be expert, to know all the methods or to all the syntaxes, all kind of concepts in depth of any programming language like Java, .NET or Python or C, something. But you should know at least basics of what is object-oriented programming. At least like what is a class, what is inheritance, what is abstraction. Like if you know what is what minimum, like what is a program, right? How to execute, how to compile. The basics, if you know, then you should know at least those basics to get a good idea and to get a better grip on the development. Okay, that is for sure. Okay, so I don't say like if you don't know anything in software, you can learn Appian and you can get a job. But if it is the case, as I mentioned, like any BA person, any testing person, any person who don't have any computer background, so yeah, that is true. Who don't have any computer background can learn Appian. But before this, you should have at least a minimum basic idea of what is the program, what are the object-oriented concepts. That is minimum. Okay, so now coming to the need of Appian in the market, how it becomes so strong in the market. For that, we have to know Appian is a BPM tool. It is a BPM tool. Okay, so this BPM tool is growing very strong in the market since last 7 years, but it is in the market from past 20 years or 15, more than 15 years, 15 to 20 years. So initially, no one, is not paying much attention about Appian, but the growth and the tool developed, implemented itself in such a way that it is becoming favorite for every one of, not only for the designers, for also for the end users. So why it becomes so popular is, for example, a simple example we'll take, a web application. What is a web application? Yeah, anyone know what is a web application? For example, if let us take Facebook. I hope you guys using Facebook every day, right? Or Gmail, any Facebook or Gmail you take. So when you open the Facebook for the first time, suppose if you open a browser and you try to open the Facebook, what it will do is first it will ask for the login. If you enter your username and password, then it will provide the access. Then the page will be loaded, and then you can access whatever the whatever the application you need. You can implement whatever the application you need with the program. Okay, but see, if you want to implement a web application, once you log in and then the page will be loaded and you access, when you click on profile, your profile will be open. So every link is actionable. But to implement that one program or one application, what we need, first of all, you need a user interface, UI, UX. So this we can implement using HTML, CSS, or JS, or JSP. If you are using .NET, it will be ASP. If If it is Python, like so there are many UI tools like jQuery, the AngularJS. There are many different technologies in the market to handle the UI UX. Then once you log in, then what will happen when you click on submit? What it should do, whether you are a authorized user or not, it has to check, right? But the data should be stored somewhere, right? So the database is playing very key role to handle the data. So like we have SQL and Oracle and PostgreSQL. And yeah, there are many MySQL. There are many database tools. So it has to save somewhere in the DB from the database only. We can check whether that username and password, that combination is available or not, right? And once you log in, what you need, so for login, what you need, so when you enter a username password, you are making a request. So who will transform, like I enter the username password and it will check in the DB, but who will take that data to the DB and who will get back the response to me is, so we need to depend on a server. So there are two types of servers, so, servers and application server, it doesn't matter, but any server will perform request and response. So we have WebSphere, Tomcat, we have different kind of servers, and by using these servers, we'll process the request and response. So from UI, if you enter login name password, it will check in the DB. But who will do is from UI, the request will be taken by the server to the database, and once the database generated the response, the same server will take that response and give it back to the UI. For example, if I enter username password correct, then you will get your profile. But if you use username password wrong, what will happen? You will get a message, error message. So invalid username or password something. You will get a message, right? And so UI UX is fine. Server is performing the request and response part, and database is saving the data. But to connect all of these, we need a technology. Any technology, like we may need a technology or a programming language. Like usually we use mostly Java or .NET or Python. It doesn't matter whatever it may be. So if you guys understanding to implement one application, suppose one simple login page if you want to implement in the real time, definitely you will need all of this. Yes or no? Yes or no? Anyone?
Yes, yes, yes.
But if any one of the if out of these four, if any one of the part is missing, am I able to complete that login page and respective profile page? Is that possible? It is not possible, right? If server is not there, who will take my request and response to the database? If I don't know programming language, how can I write, right? How can I write a command that take this data to the database or get the data from the database? How can I write that command or logic? And if I don't know UI, there is no, the end user cannot directly go into the database and he can check whether username password or not. So without UI, there is no application at all, right? If any one of the part is missing, you cannot implement your application, right? But if you want to be a developer, software engineer, then it is your responsibility, like to make sure. And in some cases, along with this, to make life easy, there are some frameworks also. Uh, there are some frameworks also being introduced by the tools. So those were like Spring Boot, or MVC architectures. Like mostly these are technical parts. Even as I'm saying, I'm also not so expert in all these things. I know, like what is a Spring. what is a Spring Boot. Like, what I know only definitions. But you no need to be expert to become, become experienced, or become uh, well-known Appian guy, but or Appian person. But here you have to have an idea what are the things that are working in the background, so that you can understand the behavior of that tool easily. Okay, so yeah, in if I want to become a developer or software engineer, then I have to know all these concepts, right? If I don't know any one of the concept, then I'm an incomplete software engineer where I'm incapable of implementing a complete web application, right? But the problem is, the developer know technically all these things, but the end user, who is the end user? For example, I'm talking about developer or software engineer. Software engineer, but the software will implement the data or implement the logic for whom? For the business user, or we can also call it as end user, right? Okay, I'm implementing this application for the. So if I implement the application as Facebook, who will access? All the users. So who you are accessing or who are using, there will be the users, customers, business users, whatever it may be, right? Software engineer will implement, and business user or end user will use it. Okay, so this business user will sell this application to the customers, right? This business user will sell the product to the customers, or he will give it for free, it doesn't matter. But business user or end user who will own the application, but customer is actually who is using the application. Okay, so in this scenario, for example, one of the business user come to me, boss, I want to implement a application for my hotel, where I can receive the orders online and I can deliver, and also I want to track the status. So the one of the business user come to me and he asked me to implement such application. So as a developer, as a software engineer, what I will tell him is, okay, so what I will do is I will create HTML pages with all CSS and JavaScript where dynamically they will perform. In the backend, JSP will take the data and it will save the database. And I'm going to use the Tomcat server for executing this application. I will implement a Spring security to make sure no one is, you know, Spring security and Hibernate to interact with the database. And also I will use all the latest multi-threading options, um, multi-threading, and all the IO files, input output file streams I will use to implement your application, for example. So if the developer explain the same words, like it is what he will do, right? So if you do all those things, then only the application will be implemented. So if the developer explain the same thing to business user, does he able to understand what he's saying? Anyone? If you explain, like all HTML, JSP, Tomcat server, Hibernate, Spring, if you explain all these technical terms to a business user or a product owner, does he be able to understand? He's a hotel owner, he's a restaurant owner. Does he able to understand all this terminology, technical terminology? First of all, does he able to understand what he's going to do?
No.
No, right? How can he understand? Because he's a restaurant or he don't have any technical idea. But how software engineer can explain him how restaurant can run? So you don't know what is the internal infrastructure, what is the business model, nothing about the hotel or restaurant management. So how a software engineer can, you know, convey or convince the end user that he can implement the application? Whatever he said is correct. He will implement all the UI from GSP or HTML, and he will process all the requests. So whatever he said from his point of view is correct. by using all those technology, all those languages, he will implement the application where the business user will give the requirements. According to the requirements, he will, by using all these technology, but he cannot be able to convince the business user by explaining them the technical terminology, right? So to make it work, like the software engineer will never directly connected to the business user. So software engineer, so SE I'm saying, will connect it to a business analyst. So the software will connect it to a business analyst. Okay. The business analyst is a person who knows both the business model and a little bit of technology. So he don't know how to. For example, if you ask him to implement a Hibernate or Java program to connect to the database, if I ask him, then he can't do it. But he knows that Java can connect to the database. But he knows Java can be connected to the database, and he knows how Java can be retrieve the data or it can insert the data somehow. But he don't know the background, how to implement. He don't know, but he know about the technology. So whatever he is explaining, um, the business analyst will connect to the product owner or end user, and he will explain that to the software engineer. So there is a person is compulsory to understand the language. For example, the same class, what I'm explaining, if I explain in Spanish, will you be able to understand? Hmm? Of course, until and unless someone knows Spanish in the session, maybe understood. But if I explain the same class in Spanish, will you be able to understand? No, right? So there must be a mediator, or there must be a translator who can convert Spanish into English, whichever the language you understandable. And if you ask any doubts, again, I can't understand because I know only Spanish. So again, the same translator will translate the doubt to me. So like that, if two persons want to interact with no idea, then we need a mediator. Okay, so that is business analyst. So it can be a business analyst, it can be a project manager, so who can know both the business and uh, or it can be a system architect in the system architect, like whoever it may be. But between the product owner and the software engineer, there should be a never direct interaction, because the terminology by business and the terminology from the development is completely different. So here, to every time if any one of the person is missing, then it is difficult to communicate the requirements between the product owner and the software. It is one of the major issue in the development. Okay, that is one problem. And second problem is, for example, I have implemented a web application using all these tools. Now, in the future or in between, I got an error. For example, I enter the username password and I click on submit. Nothing is happening. But what is happening is in the back end somewhere, database connection timeout, or the logic I have written to send the request is correct, but to get the response is wrong. Okay, so when you get that, but end user have no idea what is happening. Means the customer have no idea, so he enter his username and password and click and waiting for the next page to load. But login successful, because request successful, but response he didn't get. So if you get the response, then that only can be visible to the customer, right? But that response, somewhere it failed. So what the developer should do is they have to check whether which logic is failing, which tool is failing, his database is failing, his server is failing, or is like he has to check each and every part, and then he has to find out in which part he has the problem, and all are internally tightly coupled. Like one, we cannot use one technology without another technology, so all are must be used together. So in the tightly coupled, it is very difficult to handle the error part. And also, if you want to enhance, or if you want to improve your application, then if you make a change at one place, then obviously the whole ecosystem will be disturbed, and you have to make sure, and you know make sure you have no errors. But this is the actual process. So why I'm explaining all these things is this is actual process. So this process will take too much time. Like, first all the UI should be implemented in one language, then database data model will be implemented in DB, and servers has to be set up, and then all the frameworks we have to write the logics to perform all the actions, and the actual logic you can write is in Java. So to do all these things, it will take a lot of time. Yes or no? It will take a lot of time. And also, if you have any error, it is also to identify the error itself, it will take too much time. Then to rectify, it will take some more time. So, in this nowadays, you guys tell me nowadays, what is time? Anyone? What is
Time is money.
time is money, right? Exactly. So, if a product owner who is ready to, launch his application as soon as possible, but if I take this process, how much time it will take, how much money he has to invest, how many resources he need. It is lot of time taking process. And if you got any error by mistake, then see, he has to go through all the tools, all the technologies and all. First of all, it is difficult to get a person to know all. Are you expecting a developer, to know all these concepts by one person, right? If you
No.
know, like, so for you need a database administrators, you need a server admins, you need a expert in Java programming, right? You need again multiple people, and you have to understand that a requirement together. They have to understand together, and then they can implement. I hope you might see in some of them, you see mimes, like, requirement is a buffalo, but output is an elephant, something. And also there is some meme, or a video in somewhere, like, so there is a line of people will stand, who is facing on one side, and one person is explaining only by gestures to the next person. So the whatever the first person is explaining, and the same gestures, and the same gestures by the end of the person was completely different, right? I hope you guys, some of you, or anyone see that, right? So when the so many people involved, what happened is the communication, there should be a communication gap, and there might be a chance of loss of some of the requirements, or misunderstood the requirements. This can happen, right? So there are so many issues and problems with this kind of approach, so that there are different kind of tools were introduced. There are different kind of tools were introduced, like, see, there must be a system which can do this tests automatically. Like, if I want to, for example, ISI, means not the terrorism one, ISI mark on a product,
Indian standards.
right? So if you
International
see
standards.
that, no, Indian Standard Institute only. So if you see that mark on a product, will you take it without any doubt or not? If I give you two products, one is with ISI mark, another one is without ISI mark, which one will you take?
ISI one.
Because that product is already following some standards, and it is tested by a trusted organization, and it is given to us. For example, FASI food, like, on all food products we have that FASI certification, right? So a product with FASI certification, a product without FASI. So what those organizations were, they make sure whatever the product you are creating or implementing, if that product is following a certain process and all the rules and regulations, then obviously the output of the product will be good. Yes or no? Like ISO certification. Why ISO certification? If an organization have ISO certification, we can trust it blindly. Why? Because that organization is already following so many rules and regulations which are implicated by ISO. So if they follow a rule, automatically you will get a good product, right? So these kind of institutes are being introduced in real time for those, but for the programming, so if you see the whatever you are seeing on the screen, this is one of the timeline description, like so to avoid these kind of situations, whenever um, the programming started, since then there are so many quality managements or processes are introduced in the system, but we didn't follow, or we are not worry, we don't need to worry about. For example, if you want to get a ISI product, do you go through all the ISI standardized process? You don't need to, because that company will do, and you will get that product and you can use that product directly, right? So similarly, there are some products which are, sorry, not products, there are some processes in the market, like total quality man, just in time, like I even don't know what it is, but it is one of the standardized process for implementing a program. So it is in the time of COBOL, or it's very very old language, mission level language. For mission level languages, it will be applicable, but we don't need to discuss about them. But total quality management, it is like C, C++ for them, and lean, minimize the value, sorry, maximize the value, minimize the waste, and Six Sigma. I hope you guys might have heard Six Sigma rules, like where if the any product passing that Six Sigma rules, then it is a very good product. For airlines also, there is a, for airline also there is a not Six Sigma, it is 12, or there it is doubles, so there is even more checks for the airlines process. Okay, like that. So what my intention is, so there is a standard process has been uh, created to make sure the product that end user is getting is more trustworthy and the quality and easy to use. Okay, so these are the different kind of you know uh, processes, or different kind of uh, what I guess standards which are introduced in the market. So we can discuss about these two only, because about 1986 I don't think we need, but 1990s where our actual programming language coming into the market, and since then, so there are some certain process managements were coming into the uh, case. Okay, so this business process engineering and business process management uh, is actually used, you know, to follow a standard process to create a web application or to create an application, right? So, okay, you are using all these things, but if you follow the process implemented, or if you follow the flow that was implemented by these management systems, then your product, your output will be more quality and better efficient product. Okay, so this business process management was implemented by OMG group, that is object management group. They have implemented some standards, like if I want to explain the data to the end user, as I mentioned before, if the end user explained, sorry, if the business user explained his requirement to a software engineer, then the software should give him a high level of what he is going to implement, right? But instead of the software engineer explain him from the technology terminology point of view, but he can explain in some pictorial representation or in some business representation. So, does anyone know flowcharts or ER diagrams? If you are completed BTech or any graduation, post graduation, but at the end of your education, you might submit a project. Anyone uh, submitted a project from the batch? Everyone, almost everyone has to submit the project, right? So I don't know how much you guys are involved in the project. I am not asking, but you might submit the project. But at that time, you will submit what you will submit to the HOD, what you submit in the college. You don't submit the logic what you have implemented. For example, if you create a web application, you don't give all the web.xml files. You don't implement all the Java files or .NET files or Python files. Whatever you have, what you will give is you will give a report. You will give a document, right? So and so this is a problem statement, and this is a solution we have decided, and these are the actors, and these are the functionalities, and these are the tables, right? You will give a report, right? And in that report, okay, so these are the ER diagrams, entity relationship diagrams, and these are the flow charts. Okay, so these are the user diagrams. Like you'll use a picture representation to explain what actually you have implemented, right? So those pictures or that representation was implemented by this OMG, object management group. Okay, to explain our technical terminology to the end user in a pictorial representation to make understand the end users more easily. Okay, so this BPM, business process management, was introduced to save the time actually between, like so because as I mentioned, you need so many business analysts or project managers market to communicate between software engineer and the product owner. But to reduce these users, this BPM has been introduced. So what is process? What is process? Process is like there are different words, different definitions, but ultimately the meaning, these are synonyms only. Ultimately the meaning will be same. So comprises the coordinate tasks to record and improve the integrated process of the organization. So it is completely technical terminology. Like so coordinate the tasks. Like who can do what, so that tasks will be coordinated through an improved or integrated process of an organization. But it is bit technical, and uh, but see, if you see the last definition, you will understand more easily. A systematic approach to making an organization's workflow more effective, more efficient, more capable of adapting ever-changing environment. That means, so I'm following a process, or because for example, onboarding. If you take onboarding, what is onboarding? Employee onboarding. First, employee will come into the organization, will collect all his documents, then we'll do the background check. If everything is fine, then we'll provide him an email, we'll provide him some desk, we'll provide him the thing whatever he want, and also we will assign a salary account, and then we'll assign uh, a manager. So that is the same process followed for any employee. So in the future, like if you want to make updates, any updates in that process, you can do. So that is what ever changing environment means. If you want to make that process better, you may remove some of the steps, or you may add more steps to make the process even more easier. So instead of collecting the documents manually, so I may provide a link to him and upload your documents directly. So that is a change, right? Instead of connecting the employee coming to the office and all, nowadays everything is work from home. I can connect him online, I can provide a link, I can connect him online. I can gather all the details online. So that is the process is changing, but ultimately the output same. The employee is onboarding, right? So to fix a standard process in the organization for more effective and efficient approach. Okay, so that is how the BPM coming into the market to avoid all this confusion with so many languages and all. Okay, so later this BPM tool, those flowcharts and all converted as a tool, BPM tool, right? And then that BPM in the BPM there are so many tools like not only Appian, there are Pega, Activity BPM, IBM BPM, Mendix, Bonita Soft, Kissflow, PNM Soft. There are many BPM tools. I don't know exactly the number, but there might be around 80 to 100. There might be 80 to 100. And all the BPM tools must follow, all the BPM tools must follow uh, the notations provided by the OMG group, Object Management Group, which is a BPM and Business Process Model and Notations. Those notations are nothing but the flowcharts, which you might know already, like start and stop, process, input and output, decisions, functions and execute. So if you want to create a flow, for example, I want to create a program for check whether the given number is prime or not. If I want to check, like you can create a flow chart, start, input the data, and process, check whether the given number is prime or not. Then output, print the output and stop, close it. Like that, you can create a flowchart. So all these notations. So why this symbol is always start and stop? So all those notations were implemented by this OMG group, Object Management Group. Okay. So this group is provided. This BPM is a graphical notation of the business process, and also it explains us like a process. If I want to check the availability order received, if the data is if the article is available, then they will ship the article and take the payment. But if the article is not available, then they will inform the procurement and remove the article from the catalog. And also at the same time they will inform the customer that so sorry, the product is not available. So this is a process. And this process, so now if I explain the same to an end user, he will understand, okay, this is how. But what is the logic, he no need to understand. This is high level explanation, right? So like this, all the BPM tools will help the end user to convert their problem into a simple solution from a pictorial point of view. But BPM tool is not only creating this image, but also it will execute this flow. The BPM tool will not only just give a presentation, but also it will execute the flow. So order received means when you send an email, actual process will trigger. A class will be executed, an object will be created, and it actually go into the database and check the availability of the article. And like so everything will happen in the backend by this tool. But all the operations, whatever you are performing by using all these tools will be performed as it is without knowing the knowledge of that. The BPM tool designer does not need to know what technology is working behind, but simply by using the BPM tool, he can implement all of them. Okay, so that is how a BPM tool has been implemented to make sure all the required functionalities assembled at the same place, and that is how the BPM tools are becoming so much famous in the market. Then later, there are so many tools in the market. If you are able to see, if you are able to see Pega, APPIAN BPM, TIPCO software. So Bosch software engineering. These are all the BPM tools only. Okay. So these tools, it is around 2014. So APN BPM is somewhere below in the leaders. But now if you see the same graph from the Gartner Magic Quadrant, the APN is on the top of all the BPM tools. Now it become a number one leader in the market. Okay. So that is how all the BPM tools were, introduced so that they can save so much time, and you don't need a person, or different persons who is having different knowledge. You need one person who have BPM tool knowledge, can perform all the functionalities. So time will be saved, resources will be saved, implement a quicker application, errors will be reduced, optimization will be improved. There are many advantages. Okay, so how that can be achieved, that we can discuss in the APN tool itself. Okay, so I think that's all for now. The introduction of the BPM tool. So what is APN, and how these options, whatever we have discussed in APN, will be implemented and achieved, we'll discuss in the next session. Any questions? Any questions? Yeah, Kalyan.